Commander Vazix of the Keldari Confederation stared at the holographic display with 8 of his eye stalks, while the remaining 2 focused on Admiral Phasra, whose purple scales had paled to an alarming lavender. "You cannot be serious," Vazix said, mandibles clicking in agitation. "They are just humans. Squishy, fragile things without proper exoskeletons. How could they possibly have survived our first wave?" Admiral Phasra tossed a data crystal onto the command console. "See for yourself. Not only did they survive, but they pushed our forces back. The 12th Armada is completely gone." "Gone? As in retreated?" "No, Commander. As in obliterated. 17 capital ships, 200 fighters, and nearly 30,000 of our best warriors. They vaporized." Vazix scoffed, a wet, gurgling sound that sent droplets of blue spittle across the pristine floor of the command center. "That's astronomically improbable. Our intelligence indicated the humans barely had interplanetary travel capabilities. They were supposed to be primitive." His voice rose to a shriek that made junior officers nearby flinch. "And yet," Admiral Phasra said, gesturing to the hologram, "here we are." The holographic replay showed the initial Keldari assault on the human colony of Proxima Centauri b. The attack had been meticulously planned. The textbook invasion drop out of hyperspace, neutralize orbital defenses, establish air superiority, then land ground forces to secure the planet. Except the humans didn't follow the textbook. The video showed the first wave of Keldari ships emerging from hyperspace, immediately firing upon the pathetic orbital platforms the humans called defenses. Then, without warning, hundreds of previously undetected vessels swarmed from the planet's dark side. "What are those ships?" Vazix demanded. "Our intelligence never mentioned vessels of that configuration." Phasra's voice dropped to a whisper. "We don't know. They don't match any known human design. It's as if they built an entirely new fleet in secret." The hologram continued, showing the strange human vessels darting between Keldari ships with impossible agility. Unlike the ponderous capital ships of most spacefaring races, these craft moved like insects, changing direction instantly without apparent concern for inertia. And they were devastating. Plumes of blue fire erupted from Keldari vessels as the human ships struck with weapons that somehow bypassed their shields entirely. The Confederation's mighty dreadnoughts, each the product of decades of engineering and resources equivalent to a small planet's GDP, popped like soap bubbles. "Computer, pause playback," Vazix commanded. The hologram froze on an image of the human fleet regrouping around the colony while Keldari vessels burned. "This must be a trick. Some kind of propaganda the humans created." Admiral Phasra laughed, a harsh, barking sound entirely devoid of humor. "I wish it were. This footage comes directly from the black box of the only ship that managed to escape a small scout vessel that was at the edge of the system." The door to the command center hissed open, and Science Director Luzal entered. Unlike the military officers with their impressive exoskeletons and chromatic scales, Luzal's body was encased in a mechanical support suit, his natural form too frail to withstand standard gravity. "Ah, I see you are reviewing the human counterattack," Luzal said, his voice modulated through speakers in his suit. "Fascinating, isn't it? They shouldn't have been capable of such resistance." Vazix turned all 10 eye stalks toward the scientist. "Do you have an explanation for this catastrophe?" "Several, actually," Luzal replied, connecting his suit to the command console. "May I?" The hologram shifted, displaying a human in a primitive spacesuit standing on their equally primitive moon next to a rudimentary lander. "This is from their historical archives," Luzal explained. "Approximately 5 of their centuries ago. Remember, at this point, they had just developed basic computing systems and were using chemical rockets. The image changed to show vast human cities, ground vehicles spewing pollutants, and massive industrial complexes. Within 1 century of that moon landing, they had begun to destroy their own planet through industrialization. Yes, Vazix interrupted impatiently. This is all in the briefing materials. Primitive, self-destructive, easy conquest. Clearly, that assessment was flawed. Not flawed, Luzol corrected. Incomplete. We failed to account for the human capacity for rapid advancement under pressure. Look at this progression. The hologram displayed a rapid sequence of human technological development, crude spacecraft giving way to more sophisticated designs, primitive weapons evolving into increasingly destructive arms. Their technological advancement doesn't follow the standard sigmoid curve of most species, Luzol continued. Instead, it exhibits exponential growth during periods of conflict or perceived threat. Vazix's mandibles clacked together in frustration. Are you suggesting they somehow knew we were coming? That's impossible. Our invasion plan was completely secret. No, Commander? I'm saying they were preparing for something, even if they didn't know it was us specifically. Humans have a peculiar psychological trait, paranoia, combined with extraordinary creativity. They imagine threats and then develop countermeasures for those imagined scenarios. Admiral Fazra, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. You mean they invented weapons to fight enemies that didn't exist? Precisely, Luzol confirmed. And when real enemies appeared, they simply deployed these countermeasures. Look at this. The hologram shifted again, showing humans gathering in what appeared to be some kind of governance chamber. A human female stood at a raised platform, addressing the assembly. For years, we have been called paranoid for maintaining military spending after the last war. We have been called warmongers for continuing weapons research during peacetime. Today, those investments have saved us all. The assembly erupted in approving vocalizations. The human continued. The Keldari thought they were dealing with the peaceful face of humanity, our explorers, our diplomats, our merchants. They never realized that beneath our civilization lies the survival instinct that carried us from being prey animals on the savannah to the stars. Vazix flicked his tendrils in annoyance. This is just human propaganda, perhaps, Luzol admitted. But their actions match their rhetoric. After repelling our initial assault, they didn't celebrate and relax. They immediately began fortifying their colony and preparing for our next attack. Furthermore, we have intercepted transmissions indicating they are mobilizing throughout their territory. So we launch a larger assault, Vazix declared. The Confederation controls thousands of worlds. We can overwhelm them with sheer numbers. Admiral Fazra and Science Director Luzol exchanged glances. There's something else you should see, Commander, Fazra said quietly. A transmission broadcast on all frequencies after our retreat. The hologram changed again, showing a different human. This one wore no uniform but stood in what appeared to be a primitive command center. He was an older specimen with sparse white filaments on his head and deeply lined skin. To the leadership of the Keldari Confederation, the human began, his voice calm but carrying an undertone that caused Vazix's primary heart to skip a beat. My name is Dr. Miles Blackburn, Secretary General of the United Earth Alliance. I'm sending this message to clarify something that you clearly misunderstood. The human paused, leaning forward slightly. What you encountered was not our military. The ships that destroyed your armada were civilian vessels hastily retrofitted with defensive capabilities. The weapons they used were prototypes, not our finished designs. Vazix felt his scales rippling in disbelief. For most of our history, the human continued. Humans have fought each other. We have become very, very good at it. But in recent centuries, we have channeled that capacity toward peaceful pursuits. We have pretended to be civilized. The human's expression shifted subtly, and even across species, Vazix recognized the look of a predator. This is Earth's final warning. Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be civilized. If you force us to fight for real, we will not stop until the Keldari Confederation exists only in historical archives. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. After several moments, Vazix found his voice. "They are bluffing. They must be. No species could possibly hide that level of military capability." Luzol shook his head, the motion barely visible within his support suit. "Commander, our preliminary analysis suggests they are telling the truth. The weapons signatures from the battle don't match any known military technology. They appear to be improvised from civilian research projects." "What does that mean?" Vazix demanded. "It means," Admiral Fazra interjected, "that we just attacked a species that doesn't have a dedicated military because they have never needed one. Everything they have accomplished so far has been the equivalent of grabbing whatever tools were at hand when unexpectedly confronted by a predator." A cold sensation washed over Vazix as the implications sank in. And if they actually organize for war, then the Confederation may have made the greatest mistake in its 10,000-year history, Luzol finished. Commander Vazix Noor stared at the frozen image of the human with new understanding and, for the first time in his career, felt genuine fear. Strategic analyst Teska Riv had never been summoned to the High Council before. As a junior member of the Intelligence Division, her reports typically filtered up through layers of bureaucracy, eventually reaching decision-makers in digested, anonymous form. Yet here she was, standing before the 9 most powerful Keldari in the Confederation, trying to keep her eye stalks from trembling visibly. Analyst Riv, High Counselor Mact addressed her, his ancient voice rasping like sandpaper on chitin. "We have reviewed your psychological assessment of the human species. The Council finds your conclusions disturbing." Teska straightened her posture, forcing confidence into her voice. "The evidence supports my analysis, High Counselor. You claim these humans are not merely violent but possess a unique form of adaptive aggression unseen in any other sentient species," another counselor stated, a reading from her report. "Yes, Counselor Ziva. Unlike most predator species that evolve for specific hunting patterns, humans developed as persistence hunters with extraordinary environmental adaptability. They have maintained these traits despite their technological advancement." My Counselor Mac leaned forward, his massive exoskeleton creaking with age. "In plain language, Analyst Riv." Teska took a deep breath. "In plain language, sir? Humans don't fight like any species we have encountered. They don't follow rules or established patterns. When threatened, they don't just become more aggressive, they become more clever, more innovative, and more willing to break taboos." "That cannot be evolutionarily stable," objected Counselor Drez, the youngest member of the High Council. "Such traits would lead to self-destruction." "With respect, Counselor, humans nearly did destroy themselves multiple times," Teska replied. "But each time they pulled back from the brink and implemented control systems, what they call laws of war and ethical constraints. These aren't natural to them. They are artificial limitations they have imposed upon themselves." "And you believe their warning that they will abandon these self-imposed limitations?" High Counselor Mact asked. "I do, sir. Human history demonstrates that, when facing existential threats, they revert to what they call total war, a concept most civilized species find abhorrent. They will use any means necessary to ensure survival, regardless of previous ethical positions. The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembled leaders. Is retreat an option? Councillor Ziva finally asked. General Klav, the military representative on the council, shook his head emphatically. Impossible. The Confederation has never retreated in its history. Such an action would invite rebellion across 100 subjugated worlds. We would face internal collapse. Then we must strike decisively, Councillor Drez declared. If these humans are as dangerous as analyst Riv suggests, we cannot allow them time to fully mobilize. Teska felt panic rising in her thorax. Councillors, if I may. You may not, General Klav cut her off. You have provided your analysis, Analyst Riv. Strategic decisions are the domain of this council. The High Councillor Mact raised a gnarled appendage for silence. We will hear the analyst's final thoughts before dismissing her. All eyes turned to Teska. Councillors, I believe attacking the humans again would be catastrophic, she said, forcing each word past her fear. My analysis of their communication patterns suggests they were genuinely shocked by our aggression. Before our attack, they had no hostile intent toward the Confederation. Are you suggesting diplomacy? General Klav asked incredulously. I am suggesting survival, Teska replied. The humans outnumber us, their technology is advancing at an alarming rate, and they possess psychological traits that make them exceptionally dangerous when threatened. But they also demonstrate remarkable capacity for cooperation and alliance building. She projected a simple graph showing comparative birth rates and technological advancement curves. Even if we committed our entire military, projections indicate humans would surpass our capabilities within 2 of their years. They breed faster, innovate faster, and adapt faster than we do. But they also forgive another trait rare among evolved predators. The council members exchanged glances. You will wait outside, High Councillor Mact finally said. The council must deliberate in private. Teska bowed and exited the chamber, her limbs weak with relief at having survived the presentation. Outside, she found Commander Vazix waiting, his scales now a mottled pattern of stress coloration. How did they receive your assessment? He asked without preamble. About as well as you'd expect, she replied. General Klav wants to attack immediately. Vazix clicked his mandibles in frustration. That fool will doom us all. Did you show them the new intelligence? I didn't get the chance, Teska admitted. They dismissed me before I could present the deep space monitoring data. Then I must insist on addressing them myself, Vazix declared, moving toward the chamber doors. Teska grabbed his arm, an egregious breach of protocol that made them both freeze in shock. She quickly released him. Commander, forgive me, but rushing in there will only harden their position. Let them reach their own conclusion first. Before Vazix could respond, the chamber doors opened and an aide emerged. The council requests Commander Noor's presence. Vazix gave Teska a meaningful look before entering, his posture rigid with determination. Left alone in the antechamber, Teska connected to the intelligence network through her neural implant, reviewing the latest data streams from the human territories. What she saw made her primary heart stutter with dread. The humans weren't just preparing for another attack. They were mobilizing on a scale that defied comprehension. Industrial outputs had increased by 300% across their territories. Civilian shipping had been completely reorganized into military logistics chains. And most alarming, energy signatures suggested they were converting entire asteroids into weapons platforms. All this in just 14 days since the initial attack. The chamber doors opened again, startling Teska from her review. Commander Vazix emerged, his color now stabilized to a professional blue. "Well?" she asked anxiously. "The Council has made its decision," he replied, his voice perfectly neutral. Teska felt her stomach sink. "They are attacking again." "No," Vazix said, surprising her. "They are sending me to negotiate you. But you are a military commander, not a diplomat." Vazix's mandibles formed the Keldari equivalent of a grim smile. "Precisely why I'm the perfect choice. I represent our military strength while offering an olive branch." "A what branch?" "Human expression. I have been studying them." He gestured for her to follow as he strode down the corridor. "You are coming with me, Analyst Riv. The Council was particularly impressed by your psychological assessment." Teska hurried to keep pace with his longer strides. "Commander, I have never participated in diplomatic missions. My analysis was theoretical, based on historical data and—" "And it was correct," Vazix interrupted. "More correct than you know. The deep space intelligence you didn't get to present. I showed it to them. That's what changed their minds. They entered a secure transport that would take them to the spaceport." "How long do we have before departure?" Teska asked, her mind racing through preparations. 6 hours. Just enough time for emergency diplomatic training and to review the latest intelligence. Teska's eye stalks quivered with anxiety. 6 hours to prepare for negotiating the Confederation's survival. No pressure. Vazix actually laughed, a sound she'd never heard from the typically stern commander. "If it makes you feel better, the humans are sending a negotiator named Dr. Eleanor Reeves, who until 2 weeks ago was a xenobiology professor, not a diplomat." "That doesn't make me feel better at all," Teska replied. "It just confirms they are selecting representatives based on relevant expertise rather than traditional protocols. They are approaching this rationally, adapting to circumstances." "Exactly," Vazix said, his tone now serious. "And we must do the same if the Confederation is to survive. The age of conquest is over, Analyst Riv. In one way or another, the Keldari must learn to coexist in this galaxy." As their transport accelerated toward the spaceport, Teska couldn't shake the feeling that regardless of these negotiations' outcome, the Confederation would never be the same again. Neither, she suspected, would the humans. The diplomatic vessel Tranquil Discourse dropped out of hyperspace at the designated coordinates, a neutral zone between Keldari and human territories. Commander Vazix Noor stood on the bridge, outwardly projecting calm authority while his internal organs performed gymnastics. "Status report," he demanded, keeping his voice level. Navigation Officer Prell consulted her instruments. "We have arrived precisely at the designated coordinates, Commander. No sign of the human vessel yet." "They are still 20 minutes early," Teska Riv pointed out, checking the chronometer. The humans agreed to meet in contact. The sensor officer interrupted. "Unknown configuration, bearing 045 by 173. Vazix whirled toward the main view screen. "Show me." The screen flickered to life, displaying what at first appeared to be empty space. Then the magnification increased, and a sleek vessel seemingly materialized from nowhere. Unlike the bulky, pragmatic designs of Keldari ships, this craft was almost artistic, smooth curves blending into sharp angles, its hull a deep matte black that seemed to devour light rather than reflect it. "That cannot be the diplomatic vessel," Vazix said, mandibles clicking nervously. "It looks like a warship." Teska studied the approaching craft. "Actually, Commander, I believe that is their diplomatic vessel. Remember, Humans don't maintain separate military and civilian fleets. Their ships are multifunctional. Multifunctional, Vazix repeated dryly. How reassuring. The communications officer raised a limb. Incoming transmission, Commander. On screen. The view screen shifted to show a human female with dark skin and short, tightly curled hair. She wore a simple dark uniform without adornment or visible rank insignia. Keldari vessel, this is Dr. Eleanor Reeves aboard the UEA Olive Branch. We appreciate your punctuality. Vazix stepped forward. Dr. Reeves, I am Commander Vazix Noor, representing the Keldari Confederation. This is strategic analyst Teska Riv, our specialist in human psychology. Dr. Reeves nodded. Excellent. I have brought Dr. Jiro Tanaka, our xenobiologist, and Captain Yusuf Amir, military liaison. I propose we conduct these discussions face-to-face. Our vessel has a suitable neutral conference room with accommodations for Keldari physiology. Vazix hesitated. Boarding a human vessel placed them at significant risk, but refusing would signal distrust at the outset of negotiations. That would be acceptable, he replied, making a quick decision. Analyst Riv and I will shuttle over immediately. Dr. Reeves smiled, the expression causing her facial muscles to contract in what Teska recognized as a non-threatening display. We look forward to your arrival. Olive Branch out. As the transmission ended, Vazix turned to Teska. Thoughts? Their ship name is significant, she replied. Olive Branch is a human symbol of peace originating from ancient religious texts. They are sending a deliberate message, or setting a trap, Vazix countered. Teska's eye stalks swiveled in their equivalent of a head shake. If they wanted us dead, Commander, they wouldn't need a trap. The data I have been reviewing suggests their weapons technology has advanced significantly even in the days since our initial confrontation. Vazix stared at the black ship on the view screen. Then we'd better make sure these negotiations succeed. The shuttle journey to the human vessel took just under 15 minutes, during which Teska attempted to brief the commander on last-minute human cultural nuances. Remember, they expect a certain amount of eye contact, but staring is considered aggressive. And they use facial expressions extensively for communication, so watch for. Analyst Riv, Vazix interrupted gently, I appreciate your thoroughness, but if I try to remember every nuance of human behavior, I will be too distracted to negotiate effectively. Teska's scales flushed with embarrassment. Of course, Commander. I apologize. Don't apologize. Your insights are valuable. But perhaps focus on the most critical aspects. What should I absolutely not do? She considered for a moment. Don't show aggression through posture or mandible displays. Humans are hardwired to respond to perceived threats with escalation. And don't dismiss their concerns about civilian casualties. Humans place extraordinary value on individual lives, even during conflict. Vazix nodded, absorbing this. And what should I do to establish rapport? Acknowledge their capability without appearing intimidated. Humans respect strength but respond well to honesty. Oh, and they appreciate what they call getting to the point of minimal ceremonial preamble. The shuttle slowed as it approached the Olive Branch's docking bay. No ceremonial preamble, Vazix repeated. That, at least, will be refreshing after high council meetings. The shuttle settled onto the deck with a gentle thud. Through the viewport, they could see 3 humans waiting Dr. Reeves from the transmission, plus 2 males of different pigmentation and physical builds. Here we go, Vazix murmured, trying to ignore the instinctive fear response triggered by the sight of the predatory bipeds. The shuttle door opened, and they stepped out into the human ship. Immediately, Vazix noticed the environmental adjustments. The temperature and humidity had been modified to closer match Keldari comfort ranges, and the lighting dimmed to accommodate their more sensitive visual organs. Commander Noor, Analyst Riv. Dr. Reeves stepped forward, keeping a respectful distance. Welcome aboard the Olive Branch. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Vazix performed a simplified greeting gesture. Thank you for the accommodations, Dr. Reeves. We appreciate the consideration. Of course, she replied. Allow me to introduce my colleagues. This is Dr. Jiro Tanaka, who has studied Keldari biology and culture for the past decade. The smaller male human bowed slightly. Commander Analyst, it's an honor to meet you in person. And this is Captain Yusuf Amir representing our defense forces. The larger human nodded curtly, his posture rigidly controlled. Commander? Vazix noted the captain's restraint, clearly deliberate, possibly hiding anger or aggression. He would need watching. If you will follow me, Dr. Reeves continued, we have prepared a conference room. Refreshments compatible with Keldari biology are available. They proceeded through corridors that seemed unnecessarily spacious by Keldari standards. Teska recognized the design choice as consideration for species with claustrophobic tendencies, another small gesture of accommodation. The conference room featured a round table with equal seating positions, obvious symbolism that Vazix appreciated. As they settled into the ergonomically modified chairs, he decided to follow Teska's advice about getting to the point. Dr. Reeves, the Keldari Confederation, regrets the recent hostilities and seeks a peaceful resolution to this conflict. Dr. Reeves raised an eyebrow, the subtle movement conveying surprise at his directness. That's refreshingly straightforward, Commander. May I ask what changed? 2 weeks ago, your forces attacked without warning or provocation. Vazix felt his scales heat with shame. The attack was ordered based on flawed intelligence and certain unfortunate cultural assumptions. Cultural assumptions? Captain Amir interjected, his voice tight. You murdered 3,000 civilians because of cultural assumptions? Dr. Reeves placed a hand on the captain's arm. Yusuf. The captain subsided, but his expression remained hostile. Captain Amir's concern is valid, Vazix acknowledged. The Confederation has a history of expansion through confrontation. Species that demonstrate technological capability without corresponding military strength have traditionally been viewed as opportunities. Prey, Captain Amir stated flatly. Vazix's mandibles twitched with discomfort. An unpleasant characterization, but not entirely inaccurate. Our intelligence suggested humans possessed impressive technological achievements, but limited defensive capabilities. This assessment was catastrophically wrong. It wasn't wrong, Dr. Tanaka said softly. Not entirely. We don't maintain a traditional military. But that doesn't mean we can't fight. Teska leaned forward. That's precisely what fascinates me about your species. You have channeled your aggressive tendencies into innovation and exploration rather than military development. Yet when threatened, you rapidly repurpose that innovation for defense. Dr. Reeves nodded. Necessity is the mother of invention, as we say. When your forces attacked Proxima Colony, the civilian research station there had been developing gravitational manipulation technology for mining operations. Within hours, they'd repurposed it to disrupt your ship's structural integrity. Those weren't weapons? Vazix asked, astonished. Not originally, no. Captain Amir's voice carried a hint of pride. Just like the atmospheric processors that were modified to disrupt your targeting systems, or the medical nanites reprogrammed to disable your ground forces' exoskeletons. Vazix and Teska exchanged alarmed glances. You seem surprised, Dr. Reeves observed. We were told your defense was improvised, Vazix replied carefully. But the scale and effectiveness suggest a level of preparation that exceeds mere improvisation. Dr. Reeves's expression grew serious. Commander, humans have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We have encountered enough hostile organisms on our own world to develop a healthy paranoia about the universe at large. We weren't specifically prepared for Keldari attack, but we were prepared for something. Which brings us to our current situation, Teska interjected. The Confederation High Council recognizes that continued aggression would be inadvisable. We seek terms for peaceful coexistence. Captain Amir laughed, a sharp sound without humor. After a single defeat, you are ready to talk peace? How convenient. Captain, Dr. Tanaka said mildly, I have studied Keldari culture extensively. For them to initiate peace talks after military engagement is unprecedented. This represents a significant cultural shift, or a tactical retreat while they build up forces for a larger attack, Captain Amir countered. Vazix felt his patience wearing thin. Captain Amir, with respect, if the Confederation decided on conquest, we would commit our entire fleet over 30,000 capital ships. Based on your demonstration at Proxima Colony, we estimate casualties would be catastrophic on both sides. The High Council has determined such losses are unacceptable. The conference room fell silent as the implications of his statement sank in. 30,000 ships? Dr. Reeves finally asked. Our intelligence suggested your fleet was much smaller. Vazix realized he'd revealed more than intended, but pressed on. The Confederation spans 800 star systems, Doctor. Our military reflects that scale. However, we have no desire to test our numbers against your creativity. Dr. Reeves studied him for a long moment. I believe you are sincere, Commander. But trust must be earned, especially after an unprovoked attack. What would establish that trust? Teska asked. The three humans exchanged glances, apparently communicating silently through subtle facial cues. Preparations for Proxima Colony, Dr. Reeves finally said. Full withdrawal from the border regions near human space. And a formal alliance treaty that includes technological exchange. Vazix's eye stalks quivered in surprise. Alliance? Not merely a non-aggression pact. Non-aggression assumes continued separation, Dr. Tanaka explained. Humans prefer integration. We build relationships rather than boundaries. The High Council might accept reparations and withdrawal, Vazix said cautiously. But alliance is unprecedented. The Confederation doesn't ally. It conquers or it ignores. Then perhaps it's time for the Confederation to evolve, Dr. Reeves suggested. Because I can assure you, Commander, humans don't do well with being ignored. And we have demonstrated what happens when you attempt to conquer us. Captain Amir leaned forward, his earlier hostility replaced with intense focus. Let me be clear, Commander. The ships you encountered were civilian vessels with hasty modifications. What you are seeing now, he gestured around them, is still not our military because we don't have one. Not yet. But we could, Dr. Reeves added quietly. If forced to choose between developing a dedicated war machine and maintaining our focus on scientific advancement and exploration, we would greatly prefer the latter. But make no mistake, we will choose survival at any cost. Vazix understood the implicit threat. If pushed, humans would stop pretending to be civilized and become the nightmare predators their evolutionary history had shaped them to be. I will present your terms to the High Council, Vazix said. But alliance will be a difficult concept for them to accept. Perhaps this will help. Dr. Tanaka said, sliding a data crystal across the table. It contains historical records of human conflicts and subsequent alliances, former enemies who became stronger together than they ever were apart. Teska picked up the crystal, her scientific curiosity overriding protocol. This could be enormously helpful in presenting the case to the council. There's something else, Dr. Reeves said, her tone shifting. Something that may change the calculus for your leadership. She nodded to Captain Amir, who activated a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed a star map of the galaxy, with highlighted regions representing known territories. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring network detected these energy signatures, Captain Amir said, zooming the display to show a region far from both human and Keldari space. Vazix felt his blood cool as he recognized the pattern. The Vex hierarchy. You know them? Dr. Reeves asked sharply. We have had encounters, Vazix admitted, centuries ago. They are a silicon-based hive mind species with a religious mandate to purify organic life. They consider biological existence an abomination. They are mobilizing, Captain Amir stated, and based on their trajectory, they will reach the outer colonies of both our civilizations within 2 years. The implications hit Vazix like a physical blow. The Confederation had barely survived their last encounter with the Vex, and that was when the hierarchy was much smaller, much farther away. Now do you understand why we are proposing alliance rather than mere non-aggression? Dr. Reeves asked. Separately, our civilizations might withstand the Vex. Together, our chances improve significantly. Vazix stared at the holographic display, watching the simulated movement of the Vex fleet. Everything was changing so quickly. 2 weeks ago, the Confederation was the unchallenged power in this sector. Now they faced not only a shockingly capable human species, but the return of their ancient enemy. The High Council must see this, he said finally. This changes everything. We thought it might, Dr. Reeves replied, which is why we are prepared to offer immediate military cooperation against the Vex threat, regardless of the status of our broader diplomatic relations. Teska blinked in surprise. You would help defend Keldari worlds despite our recent aggression? The Vex don't distinguish between human or Keldari organic matter, Captain Amir said grimly. They want all biological life exterminated. We are pragmatic enough to recognize when we face a common enemy. Vazix felt a new emotion stirring beneath his exoskeleton hope, mixed with a grudging admiration for these strange, contradictory creatures. Humans who could switch from peaceful exploration to devastating warfare in moments, who could offer alliance to those who had just attacked them, all while maintaining the most terrifying implicit threat he'd ever encountered: stop attacking or we stop pretending to be civilized. I believe, Vazix said slowly, that the High Council will be very interested in this alliance proposal, especially in light of the Vex threat. Analyst Riv and I will return to Keldari Prime immediately to present your terms. Dr. Reeves stood, signaling the end of the meeting. We will await your response, Commander. But please convey to your leaders that our patience has limits. We would prefer to focus our considerable creative energies on mutual defense against the Vex rather than preparing for another Keldari incursion. Understood, Doctor. Vazix rose as well, performing a formal Keldari gesture of respect. And for what it's worth, I personally hope this marks the beginning of a new era for both our peoples. As they prepared to depart, Captain Amir approached Vazix privately. Commander, one military professional to another. If your leaders are considering another attack, they should know this. What you saw at Proxima was our surprise response. What comes next won't be improvised. Vazix met the human's gaze steadily. I understand, Captain. and I will make that exceptionally clear. 6 months later, Teska Riv stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Joint Defense Station Collaborative Sentinel, watching as human and Keldari vessels conducted integrated training exercises. The unlikely alliance had progressed with surprising speed, driven by the looming Vex threat and the remarkable compatibility of their technologies. Commander Vazix Noor, now Admiral Noor, after his promotion, joined her at the viewport. Impressive, isn't it? 6 months ago, we were enemies. Now our fleets train together. The High Council's acceptance of the Alliance Treaty still surprises me, Teska admitted. I expected years of negotiation. The Vex changed the equation, Vazix replied, and humans can be very persuasive when they choose to be. Below them, on the station's main concourse, mixed groups of humans and Keldari moved with growing comfort around each other. Initial fears and prejudices were gradually giving way to curiosity and even friendship. Do you think we would have reached this point without the Vex threat? Teska asked. Vazix considered the question. Eventually, perhaps. Humans have a remarkable capacity for forgiveness when it serves a greater purpose. But the threat certainly accelerated matters. A small human child ran past, pursued by a Keldari youngling in what appeared to be some form of play. Both admirals watched the scene with amusement. Dr. Reeves mentioned something interesting yesterday, Vazix said. A human historical pattern called the common enemy effect. How groups in conflict can rapidly unify when faced with a greater external threat. Efficient adaptation, Teska noted. Is that why you pushed so hard for integrated crews rather than separate command structures? Vazix's mandibles formed a smile. Partially. But I also recalled something from the human historical records they shared. Their greatest achievements often came through cooperation, not competition. A chime sounded, indicating an incoming priority communication. Vazix checked his neural interface. The long-range scouts have returned from Vex territory, he said, his tone growing serious. The hierarchy fleet is larger than our initial estimates. Teska felt her scales tighten with anxiety. How much larger? Nearly double. But there's something else, evidence of internal conflict within the Vex. It seems not all factions agree on the purification mandate. A potential weakness to exploit, Teska observed. My thoughts exactly. I'm meeting with the Joint Strategic Command in 1 hour to discuss options. You should join us. Your psychological insights might apply to silicon-based hive minds as well. As they walked toward the command center, Teska reflected on the astonishing turn of events that had transformed 2 potential enemies into allies against an existential threat. Admiral, she said suddenly, do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't attacked that human colony? Vazix was quiet for a moment. I try not to dwell on hypotheticals, Analyst Riv. But I suspect our civilizations would have eventually met under different circumstances, or whether that meeting would have been peaceful. He left the thought unfinished. The humans have a saying about that, Teska offered. Everything happens for a reason. Indeed? Vazix seemed amused. They also say, don't mess with humanity, or they will stop pretending to be civilized. I don't think that's a common human saying, Admiral. Perhaps not yet, Vazix replied with unexpected humor. But given enough time, I suspect it might become one. Ahead of them, the command center doors opened to reveal a bustling operation of human and Keldari personnel working seamlessly together, preparing to defend not just their separate species but their shared future, a future neither had imagined 6 months earlier, before a warning that had changed everything. Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be civilized. As it turned out, civility between former enemies might be exactly what was needed to face the uncivilized threat looming on the galactic horizon. And if that failed, well, humanity had made it quite clear what would happen next. The end. The end.